Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Today's show this morning is unpacking the IEBC's strategic plan for 2015-2020. And before the break, Mr. Chiloba, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the IEBC, had talked to us about the three intervention areas, which were the delivery of free, fair and credible polls, institutional transformation, and then public confidence. You've talked to us about the delivery of credible polls, and we were coming into institutional transformation because, of course, the issue that we were putting to you was that to some extent you failed to carry your stakeholders, your clients, along with you, which is why you're receiving such blowback to the launch of this plan.
Yeah, we talked about that, and let me just add that, you know, must always remember that time is the only resource that we have at the disposal of everyone. And sometimes we don't pay for it. When it comes to a moment when we have to pay for it, we pay for it dearly. And we only have 2 years. Why I'm saying this is because we only have 2 years to the next election. Yes. Okay? So for the last 2 years, we've been talking about what happened in 2013 or what did not happen. And then we do not even have a time or a moment where we could come together as all key stakeholders to reflect on that for purposes of planning the future. And what we are doing with our plan, and I'm glad it has come to this point, that at least it's formed the basis of that particular debate now. How do we prepare about the future? So, yes, our role today and what we are saying even in the plan is that we want to work with all stakeholders. We want to work with all.
But address yourself to the point of institutional transformation, because listen to this from one of our viewers. Mr. Chiloba has started on the wrong foot by ignoring participation of parties while admitting that they bungled the register tallying and reconciliation. Enough is enough, and that came from Aroko. I think some of that speaks to the past, but the point is that you started on the wrong foot. Would you concede to that?
No, I wouldn't say much of that, in the sense that I think we as a country, I think we stole at some point, okay? And what I'm seeing that is supposed to happen, even based on the discussion we've had with the different political parties, that we need to have that national dialogue on electoral processes going forward. And I don't think the strategic plan could address all the issues in terms of whether to launch or not. So what we think has to happen is that we need to come together as all actors, and that's what we anticipate under this plan. Let's start together going into the future well prepared for the elections, and that platform is offered by our strategic plan.
And that is where we are telling you now, from now, you have to involve us in operational plans towards the elections.
Yes.
We need to go with you step by step.
Exactly.
And one of the other things that parties will arrest, fine, you'll send clerks to register people all over the country. How have you divided these clerks for the registration of voters on the ground? You see, most of the political parties don't have that information. We need to work with you. We need to be able to plan with you. We need to move from registration to the register, from the register to also training and our agents. You know, we need to walk the journey together. And Ezra, the bottom line is that this country is greater than you and anybody else, and me and everyone. We need to ensure that whatever we do from now is overboard, and we plan things that are going to make Kenyans confident. That's why we have to work together as partners. You, the registrar of political parties, IEBC, registrar of political parties, and also other stakeholders, so that we can move together to create confidence.
So we'll come to confidence in a bit. But address, I'm still not hearing institutional transformation, given that you are working in a very politically charged climate. And the feeling really is that you've, it certainly looks like you haven't quite, you don't appreciate just how extremely charged the environment is. And to some extent you're taking Kenyans and political parties for granted.
No, I think that's the wrong conclusion.
Right?
You make that.
Okay.
You make it.
So correct.
Now the second bit, we can talk about institutional transformation of our plan. What we've done is that we've looked at IEBC as an electoral management body, and we're asking ourselves, what character should this entity be like? And we go back into history and we establish that since 2009, there's never been an opportunity to build an entity, a corporate entity that is able to deliver on its mandate for the long term. In business language, we say, you know, is it a going concern or it's not?
Okay, let's call it what it is.
Yes.
In the 2007 elections,
yes,
the then ECK delivered an election that was flawed, and we know how that ended up.
Yeah.
And when the then commissioner, the late Samuel Kaguritu, was asked a question about who won the election, he didn't know. 2013, we then have a problem with the IEBC, to the extent that we see people who worked for the IEBC in court at the moment over a scandal referred to as Chicken Gate, and various other offences and various other questions of integrity surrounding them. How are you ensuring that we trust the IEBC and its officers?
Good, and that's now the basis of our institutional transformation program for IEBC. We're undertaking to carry out reforms that are internally driven. One, we're looking at our financial management system, because if most of those challenges or the cases we see in court today is largely because of financial management aspects. How did we budget? How did we procure items? How did we pay? And the glaring weaknesses which we established that happened in the last election and even before the election, and that is an indicator of institutional weakness. Okay, so what we are saying is that we need to have staff who have capacity in the right places, well trained, they're able to do the right job. Number two, we need to streamline our financial policies and procedures and create awareness among staff on what is expected from each and every one of them. Okay. Number three, we're looking at the entire structure and asking ourselves, does this structure serve us? Remember, today as we speak, the current structure was set up during the IIC days, okay? But along the way, we've had the interim days, and that's what IEBC is. So what we are saying that there might be need for us to rethink on how our structure, what type of structure we should have, so that we have a structure that is able to respond to the needs of citizens. So we're looking at those aspects. Then one important thing, many people may not know that, we want to invest in what we're calling organizational culture change. Okay? When you have staff coming to work, what type of attitude do they have? And when they're delivering services, what attitude do they have? Are they thinking from a Kenyan perspective, like a Kenyan voter? So we are saying we need to move away from self and look at ourselves as an entity to deliver services for the Kenyan voter.
Every time I look at you, Ezra,
yes,
and I've watched you address such forums,
yeah,
I say this is a guy to trust. But I always ask myself, is it the same attitude that is at IEBC? Because you could be a loner who is just drinking and giving us very good talk, yes, but there is nothing much that is happening. You know, financial management, and I like the way you have a faith to help the organization. But we are talking about the same issues. Like now, how are you going to remedy the problem of having a launch that did not work well? Are you going to launch? How are you going to involve these other people? How are you going to remedy that? The other one is very simple. You know, the way you plan your wedding tells us how your marriage will be. The way you take off in a race tells us how you're going to finish. Now, if you are taking off with a launch that is not working for you, yeah, and there are stakeholders complaining all over, I think that it should have been your first wedding as IEBC, to show Kenyans now these guys are working together. But now you have paid to a printer who does not deliver. Even when people are organized for simple things like barrio arrangement, at least the program is made on time. You have a guy who is making your program cannot deliver on time. How are you going to remedy that as you move along with the Akina Ndeti?
Yeah, It's interesting that we keep on going back to that issue of the printer. But
actually, okay, let's get away from the launch then. And I'll give you a simple metaphor, which is how you do one thing is how you do everything else. And so you have this launch that, by all accounts, just seems not to have gone very well. You didn't have the materials that you needed. A few parties boycotted the launch. Your key stakeholders did not have the materials they needed to feel to be engaged in the launch. So how are you going to rectify this when you talk to us about financial propriety, when you talk to us about institutional transformation? Are we going to see half-baked measures?
No, that is not, and that's why the interest of us having this plan is that you must start appreciating the end from the beginning. You know, where do you want to see ourselves, you know, well in advance? And then that determines the type of interventions that you're going to put in place. And for example, what we want to see ourselves as an entity. We appreciate the fact that we are a corporate entity that does not necessarily attract a lot of public goodwill because of what happened in the past. But we are saying we're now committed to pursue that, to ensure that we have sustainable levels of confidence in the institution going forward. Okay?
And how
so
are you
that
doing that?
Let me tell if you are working together as a team in IEBC, you would have known what has happened before you came in as a CEO. We have had meetings with the IEBC where very hot meetings as political parties, where we have aired our views about the 2013 elections and what the issues were. And I think you went through an audit as IEBC and you were given a report on where you went wrong.
Which is what informed this
which I believe should have been, that information should have informed the strategic plan. And apart from that, Ezra, you cannot come in an office and just throw everything and say everything else everyone did was wrong and we have to start from somewhere. I'm not here to advocate for IEBC, but we had 6 elections on one day. They tried their best, they made their mistakes. But now, which is the way forward? How do we move? We need to how do we move? Seriously, we need to plan. It's only 2 years now remaining. How do we move forward? That is what we should be looking for. You made a mistake, and this was a very very big mistake, not to involve political parties in your strategic plan, Ezra. What they are telling you, how do you concede that? Yes. Ezra, how do you rectify? How do you rectify this? And how do we move together? How do we walk the journey together from now? That is all we are looking for.
Okay.
Can I give a simple answer to that? Yeah. Which gives me a lot of confidence that we acknowledge there is not just relevance, significant relevance to work with political parties. Okay? And that's why our third pillar that talks about trust. We are saying the legitimacy of an electoral process is anchored on us being able to harness the trust of the electorate as well as political parties. The electorate as voters and the political parties as those who provide us the candidates to participate in election. And that is is captured in our plan.
Can you harness that given the poisoned climate? Because during the launch, one of your, I think the chairperson said that the IEBC's declining confidence was due to vitriol from political parties. So how do you fix that?
Well, I'll just say that that was a bit unfortunate. But what has happened since the launch, take this from me, we've made a commitment, even internally with the commissioners, that we're going to reach out to all political parties. Okay?
And apologize?
We're going to reach out to all political parties, talk about these issues. Those who are offended by some of the remarks that were made at the launch, we called them and she knows very well. I called her and we spoke for about 30 minutes about the issues, that one at least, knowing that we did not have bad faith when those things were said. I think it was remarks that sometimes, you know, come off the cuff.
You see, it was not fair. It was not fair because we went there with their political parties. We went there to listen to what they had, so that we could discuss with the other political parties And while we are there supporting them, we are being told that political parties have got to toe.
No, but
the
that's
political
fine.
parties have got to toe the line.
Who said this?
This is one of their commissioners.
One of our commissioners said that, and
I think
one
we need
thing
to respect each other.
I want to guarantee you, and she knows very well, that I think the commission means well, and when
But
we
you're
say
not going to apologize. You had trouble with that. Will you apologize?
over the remarks that I've just said that it was unfortunate that they were said.
But unfortunate does not take ownership of the issue.
You know,
And the fact that
sometimes saying sorry in life does not make you a lesser person. You even come out a better person.
You see that
It was a mistake. Somebody made a mistake.
Before the break, Woodwork, I wanted to tell Betty and Ezra that when you're talking about political parties, you always forget about Kenyans. This strategic plan, it is not only made for political parties, but for Kenyans.
You're right.
Actually, when she says that they are major stakeholders, yeah, the employers, your employers, Ezra,
okay,
and the employers of even those political party leaders are Kenyans.
Yes.
But
So
where do I say?
when we talk about the launch and somebody says that political parties have to toe the line, what we are telling Kenyans is that we have made this for you. You either eat or not. I think we should be very careful.
Yeah.
That's why that statement is very serious. Because when you are addressing the political parties and you tell them you either toe the line or not, you are not only addressing the political parties, you are addressing Kenyans. Because the political parties represent a constituency out there. That's how serious IEBC should take these issues.
And we've taken that seriously, and that's why I said it was unfortunate that those remarks had to be made, and that's why we went out to talk to her, we went out to talk to the political parties. We told them it was quite unfortunate, but we still commit to work together. And at the moment as we speak, on Thursday this week, the Commission is going to make some decision about how we're going to move forward, engaging with the different political parties and different stakeholders in the electoral process. Okay. That is going to happen this time.
Okay. And Ezra, in your office, the other thing I would really request for you to do, you must have a section, a department that deals with political parties. You do not have that now.
No, we are now establishing it under the current structure. We're going to have someone who is in charge of political parties affairs. So that is...
But what I would really want to assure Kenyans as the chairperson of political parties, we need to work together to ensure that Kenyans get back their confidence. Wherever you said political parties, you've talked about saying that fine, the major stakeholders are the Wananchi, but these Wananchi filter themselves through the political parties. And if we are convinced as political parties, we will convince the people that we work with that all is well. And I don't see, it is not lost. It's all not lost. The launch happened, it has happened, it's all not lost.
The question,
we need to look forward.
The question was when you asked about voter registration. She asked how are they distributed, how sure are we that it's being done in the right way, and probably also tell us like how many you have and where they can be got, because in some areas the people are not even aware that it's continuing. Okay,
I'll just explain that. One, under the Constitution, IEBC is responsible for voter registration, and then it talks about continuous voter registration. So that means what that means is that any Kenyan who is interested in registering as a voter can register at any given time. Okay, and that's what has been happening since the elections 2013. We've been having this continuous voter registration. But where does it happen? It just happens in our 290 constituency offices across the country. But we also are saying that that is not the best way to bring on board the critical mass of potential voters on the roll. Past practice or evidence shows that for you to be able to bring a significant number of Kenyans on the voters roll, you must undertake what we call the massive national best voter registration exercise. And under our plan, that's what we are planning to do from
you know, you've told us that that's what you plan to do, but I think there's a more specific question directed at you.
Yes.
Where are you doing this? Are you zoning? How many agents do you have? How many people are you expecting to get from your exercise? We're asking for specifics.
Okay, for the last 2 years, we've been undertaking continuous voter registration exercise. And on Monday, when we were looking at the data, we have approximately 80,000 only registered. Why? Because people don't see the need for registering, because there's no election coming, and perhaps there's no much awareness levels. And for us to be able to create that awareness level, we need resources, we need money to be able to mobilize citizens.
And that brings me to a point where we ask them, fine, you've got to do recruitment on the ground. You remember we had a meeting at the Safari Club?
Voter education?
Yeah, the voter education.
Yes, yeah.
And we ask you, you're going to do voter education and also do registration. You're not involving political parties. Why are you not doing this? What did you come up with? Or we do not have enough resources? Let me ask you, if you do not involve the political parties to understand what is happening within your institution, what funds, what resources you have, you know, who is going to talk for you? You know, maybe you're not adequately. Yeah, your budget. Maybe you're not adequately financed. So who is going to help you?
Here's what our viewers are saying. We are confident that this time around the IEBC will do a commendable job with a new CEO in place. He looks like an agent of change. And that came from Judy in Kitale. A voter in Machakos, we should not demonize the IEBC over an internal document, the strategic plan. The political parties should fit in. The IEBC was fair enough to consult them. How sure are we that the more time requested by political parties was not a plan to derail the IEBC? And that's a direct question to you, Madam Deti. And then from Milton in Nairobi, trust is earned, not forced. What will happen if most commissioners leave the IEBC late, close to the election, just to sabotage and put it in disarray? Please clarify.
What I want to make it very clear is that one of the points why we need to work with IEBC, if you go to Political Parties Act, Section 38(3), one of the issues that we should be working with is discuss and make recommendations on issues affecting electoral systems. Yeah? Let me ask you, you're saying it's an internal document. We understand it's an internal document. But this internal document, who is it made for? Is IEBC going to do it without consulting other stakeholders? Who are their main clients? You see, they cannot say it is their document, and that is why Kriegler came up with the Political Party Liaison Committee, because during even the last elections, in the elections of 2007, they saw there was a missing link between the IEBC registrar of political parties and political parties. That is why PPLC was created, to make sure that we work together in harmony. Whatever IEBC is planning for Kenyans. And our input in their strategic plan really matters.
Okay, and so there are several questions for you, all hinging around the same point. How do you expect trust when you're still running the commission with the same commissioners mentioned in corrupt deals? Mr. Ezra, do you honestly believe the IEBC is independent? That came from Collins in Mombasa. And then Mr. Ezra is not responding to the actual question. How do you correct the lack of involvement of stakeholders at the launch, and how do you involve them from now? Although I do think that you've addressed that to some extent, so we'll leave that. That came from Pastor Mururi in Gilgil. Independence and trust.
Yes. There's something about the commission, secondly.
Yes, it was, how do you expect trust when you're still running the commission with the same commissioners mentioned in corrupt deals? And do you honestly believe that the IEBC is independent?
Well, number one, I'll start with the last question. IEBC, I believe personally, is an independent institution, and our effort is to ensure that that independence is seen. Okay. Number two is about, I know the commissioners have been subject to debates in the last 2 years, and one, that it's not expected to happen. If you compare with other countries, Nigeria recently, we look at what happened to them the last few years, they were more or less under the same scrutiny, just like our current commissioners are. And perhaps that explains why Professor Cheche had to leave immediately after he delivered the election. the question about trust, I think we have to nurture. We have to nurture that trust. As she said, what is it that the political parties are concerned about IEBC, and how do we respond? And does our response build that level of confidence that people can trust in us again? Okay? So I think the questions of trust, I honestly believe they arose from the challenges experienced in 2013 election. And for 2 years...
And the fact that you have people in court.
Yeah, yes, and for 2 years, we had never had a chance of talking about these issues. If you remember last week, the commissioners made the opposition, who've been very hard on the commissioners, for the first time. They made the opposition, and
that's being challenged by the National Alliance.
Yeah, but we also met them, by the way, in the afternoon. We met them in the afternoon. And the issue that we're emerging is that there are a lot of things about the 2013 elections that had remained under the seal, and someone needed to just open them so that people can talk about them. And I think that level of openness and dialogue should enable us to move forward as a country. Okay. And that's why we want to nurture that going forward.
All right, then.
Yeah.
We'll take a break now. This is Cheche. We're live on Citizen TV discussing the IEBC's strategic plan for 2015 to 2020. Tell us what you think. Can the IEBC deliver free, fair, and credible elections given the opposition to the plan? Thank you.